say that yesterday I attended a White Ribbon luncheon across the way here at the Haven, and while we were standing there looking at the number that I'm personally embarrassed by being 43, that number has since become 45. So in the few days that those numbers have been there, 2 more women have lost their lives in our nation to domestic violence. It is the scourge of our society, and I have to also put a huge shout out to the Brisbane Water Local Area Command, to Superintendent Paul Nichols who stepped in for Danny Sullivan at the moment, and to Peter Watson. You know, you do an incredible job with our domestic violence unit. Only a month ago I stood here in Terrigal at the Terrigal Police Station with Minister Prue Gowan, the nation's first Minister for Prevention of Domestic Violence, and we announced that Safer Pathways is going to be rolled out across the Central Coast, and I know that Peter's excited about this. We discussed it again this morning. This will help alleviate the stress and the trauma that women have to go through escaping domestic violence, not having to repeat that dreadful story over and over again. About our community getting together today to show everybody around us that we do say no to domestic violence. Governments can do a certain amount, but us as a community have to drive that message home. As a 45-year-old male, I am ashamed of the fact that when I was growing up, people would turn a blind eye to domestic violence at home. It was something that you heard but never involved yourself in. The reality is now people on the Central Coast pick up the telephone and they do call the Brisbane Water Local Area Command and say, I'm really worried about my neighbours, I'm really worried about my sister, I'm really worried about my mother. And that is why we are seeing a change in our community attitude toward domestic violence. We will never, ever, ever accept that sort of disgusting, cowardly, gutless behaviour against the most vulnerable people, some of the most vulnerable people in our community. I'm so proud that this is the 5th year in Terrigal that we're going to make this walk up to the Haven. And I said it's just unfortunate that we're going to see the number 43 there. Hopefully one day that number will be 0. And that is what we have to strive for. And we can never stop that fight. And we can never stop telling the cowards that that sort of behaviour will not be accepted. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for doing this walk. And thank you again for saying no to domestic violence in the Central Coast.